You're listening to 101 with Tommie Zam. On the 35th episode, we sit down with Jevon Barnes from Noble Poets talking about music and life. Let's do this. Hey, what's up, Jevon? How you doing?
Good morning, Tommie. How you doing, sir?
Good. So where you at exactly?
Up in Redding, California, which is about two and a half hours north of Sacramento.
Oh, it's beautiful up there. I mean, I've been up there. I traveled up there for a little bit, but never like hung out there. But I heard it's very beautiful because that's where the redwood is, right?
Yeah, there's Mount Shasta is about 35 minutes away. Mount Lassen's about 40 minutes away. And then right off the 299, when you go west, is towards Arcata, California. And that's where you start to hit all the redwoods about halfway through there. So it's extremely beautiful. Tons of scenery to look at, wildlife, lots of outdoor activities and stuff like that.
Dude, that's rad. So do you go out and do the outdoor activities or?
Some, mostly there's tournament fishing here, which is some of the best fly fishing in the whole world. Runs right through the center of my town. It's kind of weird that I do hip hop music, but then fly fish. It's kind of like Michael Jordan that plays golf. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't really like make a ton of sense that Michael Jordan's such a avid golf guy. But so I fly fish, and that's what kind of gets me out of my element in regards to daily everyday life. So just getting out into nature. Phones don't work out there, and fly fishing on the Sacramento River or the Trinity River. So
is that where you learn how to fly fish? Is being out there?
Yeah. I pay a guide every time. It's probably one of the most expensive hobbies that you can do. And these guides are, they're some of the best in the world. And so fly fishing is equally as hard as golf. It's very, very, very challenging. So that's pretty much about the extent. Believe it or not, my son and I have those new Team Gi electric skateboards that go like 30 miles an hour, and we got the 4x4 wheels on them and stuff. So we go outside and do that. My son is super into that. My daughter as well. So that's fun because there's not a lot of traffic here in Redding, California, and so you can just mob up and down hills and kind of do whatever. So that's something we do too.
Dude, that's so rad. So you just jump on those, like you put those big wheels on the electric skateboards. You just bomb the grass hills or the whatever out there. That's pretty rad, dude.
Yeah, they go 30 miles an hour, man. So you can rip down street, you can rip down whatever. Grass. I mean, my son is still learning, so I probably bought him too expensive of a board for his age, but I was like, well, you're gonna learn it, you're gonna fall, you're gonna whatever. So I started skating when I was like 6 or 7, so I just jumped right on and just do it. Same with snowboarding. It's like that's kind of just was nothing to do in Fresno, so you skate, snowboard, play baseball, whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, because if you skateboard, you can snowboard. If you can surf, you can snowboard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I started snowboarding when I was like 13 years old when Sean Palmer came out with the first Sims board that dropped. So that's been a long time. We have good snowboarding here, but it's not like Tahoe. I'm like 3 hours from Tahoe, but Mount Shasta is here due to how cold it gets up there. Though the snow, if you don't hit it like right when the snow drops, it ices up pretty quick. So it hurts when you're trying to bust up there and you fall. It's pretty painful because the ground gets so hard.
Oh man! So the funny thing is, I mean, I don't never snowboard in my life, man. I just strictly skateboard, and I try surfing.
Yeah,
I'm not that great,
Yeah.
I one time I went out with my buddy and did the barrel dive or duck dive, and came up and the wave just smacked me, and I was like, dude, I'm done. I'm gonna sit on the beach, drink my Modelo, eat my burrito, and watch you surf.
It's surfing is super fun, man. I bought one of those brand new professional Malibu surfing boats that you can program the wave, the size of the wave behind the boat, And so my son started surfing behind the boat when he was 4. So the surfboards are about a foot shorter, but I mean, it's super fun because you're not getting smashed by the ocean current and the waves. You're actually creating your own current behind the boat. And that's one of the funnest things that I've actually ever done, because it doesn't hurt when you fall. I mean, unless you smack your forehead into the board, which I've done, trying to do 360s and aerials and stuff like that. But that's something else that's super fun to do outside. But I sold my boat right before COVID dropped.
Oh wow.
About a month before COVID hit, I sold my boat. So we haven't got to do that for 2 seasons, but I'm already looking into new boats. So we'll see. There's 2 lakes that are within like 15 minutes of me, and they're some of the prettiest lakes in California. So
Dude, that's rad. And let's go back a little bit.
sure.
Tell us a little bit about you. I mean, where'd you come from? I mean, not come from, that sounds kind of weird, but where were you born? I mean, a little bit about you.
Yeah, so I was born in Sanger, California, which is about 20 minutes outside of Fresno, California. Raised in Fresno. I was only born in Sanger. I never lived in Sanger. And I didn't really have much of a childhood, just due to my dad was an abusive drug addict, alcoholic, and I grew up in a really, really hard knock area in Fresno. It's where predominantly ran by gangs and enormous amounts of trauma, drug addiction on the streets. My neighborhood was probably top 3 hardest neighborhoods where I was raised in my little years in Fresno, California. It was, it's like you wake up in the morning, you got, PCP heads running up and down the street, heroin junkies, walking down the middle of our walking path, itching themselves because they're just, spun out on dope. And so with my dad being a drug addict, alcoholic, he kind of brought what was outside into the inside home. So I had to grow up really fast when I was little. I had to learn to navigate, take care of myself. And my mom took care of me, but what I mean by taking care of myself is, surviving, essentially. We were really, really poor, and having to navigate through, physical beatings and mental abuse and emotional abuse. That's why I'm such an advocate now for mental health and helping other kids that went through what I went through. But growing up until about the age of 13, I was outside most of the time. I didn't really like being inside the house, obviously for parent reasons. By the age of 14, I hit the streets. I just left home completely and never went back. So yeah, I was into my freshman year of high school. I snapped internally. There's only so much abuse that a kid can take until they get to a point where they're going to act out, right? And so I bounced, and I left with my backpack and like a couple, I remember I had a pair of blind jeans. I had a blind skateboarding shirt, and I had my skateboard and a couple other articles of clothing, maybe a sweatshirt in my backpack, and like $400. And then so I left to hit the streets, and that's where I really started learning about crime, learning how to double my money in the drug game, and just got into the drug game at a very early age. And due to my people skills, which I didn't know at the time that I had, I advanced pretty quickly. The problem though with Fresno is it's like crabs in a bucket. I would double or triple my money pretty quick, and then due to the fact that I was homeless, people would find out where I was sleeping, and then they would come rob me when I was. Yeah, man, that happened several times, and then to the point where by the time I was 17, I had my own apartment, and I probably had about at least 200 people a day coming in and out of there. And I was doubling, tripling, and then, going from a quarter pound to a pound to 2 pounds, and then just started making a lot of money at a really young age. And then my house got my house got robbed, and we had helicopters and a bunch of cops show up, and my house got robbed, so they took everything, right? So I didn't get in trouble. There was nothing for them to take, and so at that point, I was like, I'm out of here. I'm moving up to Humboldt County. I was barely 18 years old when I moved up to Humboldt County. So bounced up there and began getting in the drug game up there. And that was at the height of the Emerald Triangle movement. That was when, you know, you could make a lot of money really fast, depending upon who you knew. And so I came up even faster up there in Humboldt County in regards to the drug game, because there weren't people that were robbing me. And so by the time I was 20, I was moving in between $1 million to $2 million a month, up and down. I had drivers. I had 5 houses I was growing at. I had a glass manufacturing operation where I had 10 guys that were blowing glass under me. It was just an organization that I had built very quickly. It was almost like the growth was too fast, and I was getting too much too fast. Yeah. So coming up quick in the drug game, you know, just learning the life of crime is, I believe, is the root of what happened. Based upon trauma, I made a decision to hit the streets, and out of my it's almost survivability, being durable. I had to learn how to survive, and that's how I survived. So things move pretty quickly when you give a 20-year-old kid 50 G's a month profit, and the kid's got a bunch of unhealed trauma, you know, a bunch of emotional abuse, a bunch of, you know, I mean, I had every abuse under the sun by the time I was 10 years old. And that's when I started heavily medicating. So my hands were pretty much in, I wasn't selling anything besides weed, but my hands were involved in any kind of drug. Yeah. I mean, I was eating tons of molecule because we were getting it from the chemist. I was eating tons of LSD because we were getting it from the chemist. I was, you know, I had friends from Fresno that were in the cartels. So they were bringing up, you know, bricks of blow. It was a free for all is really what it was. And so I bought this ridiculous home that was a couple miles away from the beach on 5 acres of redwoods. And the place had 40-foot tall ceilings. I had a spa in my bathroom. I mean, I was just balling out of control is really what it was. It was a never ending feeding frenzy. And so, you know, I had a crew of like, I don't know, 15 to 40, depending upon the day or the week or the month. You know, there's a lot of people that come in and out quickly due to all of our life choices. So, you know, I'd have parties at my house that would last for 3, 5, 7, 9 days. You know what I mean? Yeah. And then sleep for a couple of days and then get back up and party again. And it was just completely out of control on a continual basis. And money kept feeding that, right? The more money I made, the more fun that I could have and the more stuff I could buy. You know, like I said, I had 5 houses I was growing at. So I was making more than the doctors, more than the attorneys, I was probably one of the top 10 guys at that time in Humboldt County in regards to the amount I was moving and the profitability and the influence that I had and, you know, all of my organization that I had built. So, you know, you give a kid that kind of money with the amount of trauma that I had, man, it was just medication station, baby.
Well, I mean, but think about it. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, I want to say think about it, but I mean, you've been through so much, you know, from your personal life, your family, and then you will go to the streets, and then you had to grow up quick because you like, you know, your home wasn't the home that you thought it was going to be. So your home was like the people around you, and people just, hey, hey, take this, do that, do this, do that. And then you just grew to what you are now, you know?
Yeah, that was all part of my, it is the growth process. You know, I think any person who becomes a youth the way that I became a youth and then grows into an adult the way that I became an adult, I didn't really have a childhood, so to speak. Like I said, I did and I didn't, because when I was outside, I was, you know, skating or playing baseball, or, you know, I'm very athletic. I always have been. But, you know, there, as far as like a normal childhood where you felt like you had a loving family. And I think that's also why I built such a strong organization, because I loved my people very well. Nobody around me wanted for anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's pockets were lined. Everybody was thriving. And I think that just came out of that desire to have human connection, and also to be loved and wanted by people, because I didn't, outside of my mother, I didn't feel that at all growing up. And, you know, that's what that song Never Fit In's about, right? Like I found my way to fit in. It wasn't the healthy way for me to find a way to fit in, but I did find a way to fit in. And so, you know, I moved there when I was like 18, and then I got out when I was 25. So it was a 7-year run essentially. And, you know, I had my oldest daughter in 1998, and she was being raised in the middle of this craziness.
Mm-hmm.
So she was dramatically affected by my choices. So essentially what I was doing was repeating the trauma, but just in a different way. Like I never beat my child. I never emotionally abused her. None of that stuff. She didn't have a lack of love, but she watched her dad partying, like, you know, just, we called ourselves rock stars without instruments, because that's the money we made, you know. So the deeper I got into it and the more money that I made, the more corrupt that it got, because people would start to come into the organization that we didn't know. And that's what led up to my friend from Fresno. We had about 150 grand in the trunk, and delivery guy was supposed to bring the load, and essentially shot my friend twice in the head next to me.
Oh,
and
shit, dude.
That's when the gun jammed at my head. So my friend was laid out on the steering wheel, left for dead, right? The guy who was trying to murder me stole our rent-a-car and our 150 grand. So then I'm sitting up I'm right by Murder Mountain. I don't know if you've seen that show, Murder Mountain.
Yeah, I've seen that.
So I was like 15, 20 minutes away from there, right? That's where you go to get all the big loads in Humboldt County. So I'm like right around the corner from there in Honeydew, California. And my friend's thrown out on the ground, left for dead. I actually, because the gun jammed at my head, I got out of the car and started running up towards the top of the highway. And I'm in the middle of nowhere, bro. There's no exaggeration here. And I'm not kidding, man. I hit full blown trauma shock, like PTSD, like when somebody was in a war or something, because my friend had just been shot and I almost got murdered. And I was on my knees praying, and I was like, God, you get me out of this, I'm out. Like I'm done. I mean, I almost just got murdered. And I kid you not, bro, in the middle of nowhere where all the redwoods are around, the Suburban stops and goes, hey, I'm a rabbi. Where do you need to go? And I was like, what? Like,
no way. Seriously?
I swear, bro, like a rabbi from the Bible. And he's like, yeah, I'm a rabbi, like from the Bible. Where do you need to go? What just happened? And I just got in the Suburban, and he drove me an hour and 20 minutes up north where my house was and dropped me off at my house.
Dude, that's the universe knocking on your door, bro.
Bro, I mean, what are the chances of a rabbi picking me up when I'm on my knees praying? I mean, it was literally the universe like saying, hey, you're done. Like the game's over. Well, I was in so deep and had so many houses I was growing at and was moving so much weight and had so many people relying on me. There was no way I was getting out. Well, the Vegas feds show up on my property within like 15 days of all that happening, right? Because they're on a manhunt right now. They're trying to find this dude who just shot my friend in the head and tried to kill me, right? The Vegas feds show up on my property, bro, and they were like, hey, the guy who just tried to kill you and shot your friend twice in the head was found in a dumpster in Las Vegas. And we believe that you're the one who put the hit out on him. They came on my property without a warrant. And I said, I had a tear roll down from my eye. And I go, I didn't have nothing to do with none of that. I said, I just almost got murdered. The last thing that I want to have anything to do with is hurting somebody else. And that was the truth. Mm-hmm. Due to the fact that they came on my property without a warrant, it leads into the next phase of, I had a big, huge grow scene on my property. It was a garage about 20 by 20. It was massive. And they heard my fans, my ventilation fans going. And so they tipped off the Humboldt County Sheriff Department, right? Within 30 days, Humboldt County deputies, or the deputy, or the sheriff and all his deputies, it was like between 35 and 40 of them, raid my house. Damn. I had 105 pounds on the property, stolen gun, and a hash manufacturing operation, and I had like 90 plants or something.
Damn.
And then I had a bunch drying in the top because I had this top room where I used to dry everything. Well, here's the crazy part. My daughter was there at the house that day, and it was her kindergarten picture day, bro. So she's all getting ready to do her kindergarten picture day, right? And my house gets raided. Then they want to put me in the pen for 8 years, right? So my lawyer actually, they built what's called a falsified warrant, which means the Humboldt County Sheriff Department, they had a warrant, but it was based upon the feds coming on my property illegally. So I ended up having everything completely washed. I didn't do a day in jail.
Damn.
Mm-hmm. And that's when I changed my life. I don't have a criminal record, bro.
Dude, like you had like the universe or somebody looking after your ass, dude. Like that's
well, and so that's when I changed my life, bro. So every October, I'm not even kidding, man. I look up and I give thanks because I shouldn't even be here. I should be dead. I would have been getting out of prison. 2000, probably 12, I would have gotten out of prison. So this October, it was 18 years ago that this happened. I never blew another tree. I'm not even kidding, bro. I never sold another pound. I never done any more drugs. I've been completely clean and sober since all that happened. When your friend gets shot in the head next to you, bro, and your daughter gets taken by Child Protective Services and they want to put you in the joint for 8 years, if that don't scare you enough to change your life, nothing will.
Yeah.
I mean, I
would have been like, yo, I'm good. What can I do to get my life better?
Bro, that's essentially what happened. And so, a big part of my my life goal with this music has been to help kids that have ACEs, which are adverse childhood experiences. And that's why at the end of the Never Fit In video, there's all the stats. Because there's millions of kids that live their life just like I did. With no voice, nobody knows the pain they're in, nobody knows the struggle they're in, nobody's thinking about what happens inside the home and how it affects the rest of our life outside the home, right? Mm-hmm. So, this has obviously now been 18 years since this all happened, but I started writing lyrics. I didn't start doing music until I was in my 20s. And my music was my diary, essentially. That was my outlet. So I shifted from, making tons of money and being in the drug game and having all these people under me, all this influence, all this power. I shifted that to creation is what I did. Mm-hmm. And I started creating. So after I started writing, then I went to music composition school. Then I went to sound engineering school. And that's how I got connected with Head from Korn.
Mm-hmm. Dude, that's rad. That's rad to get connected with that guy, man.
He's one of my favorite people on the planet, man. He really is just he's a beautiful soul is what I call him. He's just, The guy is just so humble. He's so giving. He really truly cares about people. And that's rare for somebody at his level. He's hit like the echelons of music, right?
Yeah.
That's not normal. Most of the people that are at that level are not as kind as Head is.
You mean arrogant and not really cool?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean. The ego. So I've been with Brian to live shows, and you know, he lets me sit on stage with him, like right behind his feet where he's playing guitar. He's just so humble about everything that he does, and I really do love the man. That's the thing. And him and I never asked him for anything. All Brian and I have ever been is friends, and that's all I ever wanted from the beginning, was just to be Brian's friend, because he's got all those other people in his life, and I'm sure, and I don't know all the details of it, but when you're famous like that, everybody's always wanting something.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't ever want to be that guy. I was already in my head. I already had that level of, you know, what I call notoriety, and all that money, big old fat house, cars, Cadillac. It's just crazy, everything that I had. And it didn't help me. It didn't fill that like empty void inside of me. And so when I got introduced to Brian, I just always had the mentality of, man, I don't want to ask Brian, you know, I don't want to ask Brian for anything, because he's got enough people doing that. Mm-hmm. And we did a song together in 2017 that I've been sitting on, that I haven't released yet. And it's just it sounds like a completely different genre of music, man. It's just crazy. So we become friends, and you know, that's why I'm on the phone with you, is because Brian has helped Noble Poets at such a deep level. He's what got us introduced to Powerline Management, which is Zach Yoshioko's deal. And then Zach is what got me introduced to Jamie Roberts. And that's how we got our distribution deal through 1RPM, was through Zach. So all these dominoes that have been falling, I guess you could say, in a good way, was put together by Brian Head Welch. I mean, he's the one who's connected all these dots.
And that's rad. And how did you guys meet?
A friend of mine called me in 2012 or 2013, and just called me and was like, "Hey, I'm with this guy that I want you to meet." And I was like, "Man, I'll be honest with you, I really don't want to meet anybody." I had just caught my wife having an affair, and I was really walking through some hard stuff, and I just wanted to be by myself. And I told him, I was like, look, man, I really don't want to connect right now. And he was like, well, I need you to meet this guy. And he's like, do you know Head from Korn? And I was like, yeah, I know who Head is. I have not really listened to their music very much, because I've always been a hip hop head, you know, since 10 years old. But I was like, okay, yeah, that's fine. Well, you know, I'll meet him. So I just came out and went boating with, we went out on one of those surf boats or whatever, and just hung out for the day. And then I come to find out, you know, his daughter is like his only daughter, but my oldest daughter they're 2 months apart. Mm-hmm. And then Brian and I start talking, and our stories are so similar in regards to the amount of revenue. And I mean, they're different, but they're similar. And mm-hmm. we just connected. And so we just been friends. Like, he called me, he's like, hey, you know, I'm playing at Aftershock tonight. You know, do you want to come down? And I was like, yeah, man, I want to come down to Aftershock. Of course I want to come down and celebrate you. And so we would just connect at things that he was doing. And we did that in Oakland, and we did that at Shoreline, and we did that at Aftershock. And I don't know, we just became friends. And now, you know, he's went so far out of his way, bro, to sometimes I'm just tickled pink, because I didn't ask Brian to do this stuff. He really just, you know, volunteered. Like I said, the drummer for Red, who mixes all of Love and Death's new stuff, that's Head's side band that he has. Mm-hmm. Have you heard any Love and Death stuff?
No, not yet.
Yeah,
I'll check it out.
Bro, they're so good, man. They're so good. So Jason Roush is in the group from Breaking Benjamin, and obviously Head, but he got his engineer, who just mixed all the Love and Death stuff, to mix our stuff. And
Dude,
Joe,
that's rad.
oh, it's rad. Joe's one of the best engineers that I've ever heard. And so Joe liked the project so much, he was like, hey, I got to get you to my mastering guy in Europe. And so then that's how I met, I can't pronounce his name, but that's how I met our mastering engineer. And then we sent the record to Head, and Head called me at like 1 a.m. and he was like, hey man, like, I just really feel like I'm supposed to do whatever I can to help you. And I was like, wow. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I was crying just because it was such a huge blessing to have somebody come alongside you to want to see, your story help other people. So that's kind of the Noble Poet's message, man, is that, all this craziness that I've went through, society is not, I don't feel has done a good job at assessing how many of us there actually are. It's like I always have this thing like, give me the ones that nobody wants, all the ragtag vagabonds,
Yeah.
because there's all kinds of us, treated like a stepchild kids that have turned into adults, are still kids, and have not really had a lot of redemption to their story. So, just a second, real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I gotta go. I'm in an interview. Okay. Okay. I just didn't want you to think that was time to be. Yeah, sorry about that. I thought that was a surveyor that kept banging on my door, and please forgive me because I don't like leaving interviews. So
You're good, brother. You're doing good, man.
She wouldn't stop coming to the door. So anyway, so yeah, the whole Noble Poets message, man, is our music is just about light at the end of the tunnel. Like, we can change our life choices. We don't have to be what's happened to us. We don't have to end up what we were taught to do. I guess the best way that I could say that. So
No, that's definitely right. I mean, and it's great. I mean, your messages, watching, your video and listen to the song, Never Fit In. I mean, it's such a good, powerful verses, powerful track. You know what I mean? It's very, gets you out there, and I think people who watch it or listen to the track, they're going to be touched because of like, some little part of what you're saying will touch other people in different ways. They might not live that same lifestyle,
right.
or what, but they had a little similar of that. Like, oh, dude, that's what happened in my life, man. This is
Right.
so.
Yeah, we when we released the single, I couldn't believe the amount of people that were hitting our feeds that are like, you just summed up my life in 5 minutes. I was like blown away. I knew it, but I didn't know it. You know how you don't know if you got something till you got it? Well, I'm like, okay, I was right. And I think Brian knew that too. And that's how he, helped me form Lion Rock Records. And because we have when I'm talking about that part in the song where it goes, old dirty white didn't have no Nikes, bet the depths of my psyche. It wasn't just the trauma from being inside the home. It was also being so poor that I had to, my mom would take me to get clothes, and I would just be begging her not to put those Rustler jeans on me.
Mm-hmm.
That's that in the track when it says, talking about Rustler jeans and how they're itching me and the holes in my coat questioning. All that stuff is real in regards to the fact that I didn't fit inside the home and I didn't fit in outside the home. So, you don't fit into society because you don't have what everybody else has. And I think a lot of kids who've walked through or are walking through not having really high-end Nikes and not having what some other kids have, that leaves an impression on people in general.
Yeah.
So that's been the feedback that we've been getting on the track. And you know, and another thing is like, man, the track goes hard. That's very important to Caleb and I as well, is that we have, not only do the lyrics and the message, you know, get communicated a certain way, but we also are very, very big on this, on the sonic side of it. Like, we want our subs to do a certain thing. We want our kicks and our snares to sound a certain way. We want our mid-range, you know, the mid-range music that we're doing to be a certain way. So we've got, you know, a whole vision that's put together based on this. So
and go back just not a little bit, but just how did you guys start up Noble Poets? Like, how, like, did you got, like, you and Caleb just sat around one day and was like, you know what, let's start a group up, or let's do this, you know what I mean?
yeah, you know, it's interesting that you're asking that. So the same guy that introduced me to Brian from Korn, he calls me like 2 years later, and he's like, "Look, I need you to meet this kid." And I'm like,
Hold on, this is the same guy that said, "Hey, I need you to meet this guy."
Yeah, that's the same guy. And he called me and he was like, "Hey, I need you to meet this kid. He's like 17. He's a producer and he's a singer." And I was like, "Chris, like, I don't want to meet no kids, man." Like, he's like, "Jevon, what did I tell you about what happened with Head?" Like, you know, he was just really asking me for a favor. Well, Caleb comes over to my studio and I heard him sing one hook. And I was like, "Oh my God." And then I listened to some of his production and I was like, "Okay, wow." And I was like, "Caleb, you got something special. So it's rough around the edges and it needs to be polished." But we just started working together the next week, not really knowing what was going to happen. And, you know, the crazy thing about our music is he's one generation, I'm another generation. So we're tying those generations together. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I was raised on, you know, Rakim and the Woo, and, you know, the what I call the Nas, the golden era of hip hop. He's kind of been raised in the, not kind of, raised in the trap scene. Mm-hmm. So that's how you get that Noble Poet sound, is from two generations pollinating and combining together. That's a rare thing. I actually haven't heard anybody that sounds like Noble Poets. That's what I love about it. It's like, our music is very original. It's different. It's not like, oh, they sound like this. We don't. So that's the fun part for me. So we formed Noble Poets, and, you know, I had already had a vision for Lion Rock Records in 2005. Right when I'm a businessman. So right when I started writing lyrics, I was like, I'm gonna start a label. So I started learning the music business. And part of my school that I went to in San Francisco was Snoop Dogg's attorney was actually teaching the class.
No way. Seriously?
Yeah. The school was really expensive, man. But every class was like sound engineering school. I was learning my sound engineering from a Grammy winner, Michael Rosen. Then Michael Ashburn was the attorney who was teaching the music business side of the class. Then John Bendich, who worked with Santana, he was the conga player in some of Santana's stuff. He was the one teaching music, that section of every section. It was a Grammy winner.
Wow.
So yeah, the class, I mean, each class was a couple $1,000. So you take 2 years of those classes. It's a very expensive education, but I got to learn things that I would have never learned had I not gone to that school. And so I already knew, I'm like, man, if I could build an organization that I built prior to me changing my life, doing that much drugs, eating that many pills, eating that much acid, you know, doing that much ecstasy, smoking that much weed, drinking that much whiskey, I can build a record label based upon me, you know, where I'm at now with me changing my life. And so that's how Lion Rock Records was formed. And Head got me his attorney, Lanny Gates. So Lanny's the one who put all of our paperwork together. So our paperwork's, flawless. There's no holes. There's no gaps in any of that. I've crossed every T and dotted every I the way that it needs to be done, so we don't have problems in the future.
That's smart.
Yeah.
Definitely smart. I mean, because if you look at it, I mean, if have you ever went back one day and just looked at from the beginning to now and like realized like how it was kind of like a cycle, but not a cycle, but you took it two different ways. Like you learned from the streets, but what you learned from the streets, and you had that, that incident that happened, and then you get on your hands and knees and like, dude, I need to get out of this. And all of a sudden, a rabbi came around, and then you got a new door. You know what I mean? And you took what you did, and look what you're doing now. You're doing a positive way.
Totally, bro. To answer your question, yes, I think about that every day. I don't think about that just once a week. I don't think about it once a month. I think about it every day, because if we don't know where we came from, we cannot figure out where we're going to go. And every time, this last 18 months has been pretty difficult on humanity. I think most of us would say it's been hard.
Mm-hmm.
I can get the opportunity to go, you know what? I'm thankful. I'm thankful that my life isn't what it was. I'm thankful, I got full custody of my daughter when she was 11, and she's in grad school now, bro. Like, I mean, I could just go down the list of miracles on my life, and we could be on this podcast for 4 hours. But when I look at where I am now in comparison to where I was, there was a choice that I made. And the choice was that I didn't want to become what was done to me. I didn't want to be a victim. Now, granted, was I a child victim of abuse? Yes, but I didn't want to stay one. I was like, I can turn this into something and flip this to be positive. And another cool thing is most of hip hop is not doing that. Most of it, not all of it, but most of it does not have a positive message. Mm-mm. It's very negative. It's very, I call it the counterfeit world that doesn't exist. Right.
Everybody's trying to make big bucks and to make them sound they're big. You know what I mean?
Right. And it's that same ego stroking that we were talking about, 10 minutes ago or whatever. So I think if I look at where I'm at, the biggest gift that I got was getting rid of my ego from the days when I had one. That's gone. And it's because I already had all that money. I already had, a $20,000 medallion around my neck. I had a $5,000 belt buckle. It was just like a $200,000 gem collection. I mean, it was just insane. And I had all that already. And so me learning that I didn't need that really has shaped where we're at right now. And I really believe that's why we're doing well, is because I don't need to have my ego stroked. I don't need all that stuff. What I do need is to help others. That's what I do need. That's what makes me come alive, is helping others. So when you live in that place of sincerity and you really do want to help other people and use this pretty traumatic story to help change other people's lives, the universe does come around and open itself up to blessing people that are wanting to do that. You reap what you sow. I don't care who you are. That's a universal law. So.
No, you're right. You're totally right. I mean, like, there's so many people out there, and it's not just, music and skateboarding and stuff. It's a general public in the world. Everybody's so caught up in, what they're going to look like and this and that. And I blame that mostly on social media. You know what I mean? And because think about it, I'm not giving my age and you're not giving your age, but when we were growing up, we didn't have that. We didn't have social media. We didn't care what we looked like and whatever. You know what I mean? Yeah, we went to school and we had the kids like, oh, you're wearing Bobos. Ha ha ha. You know what I mean? That's
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Man, and it's almost like social media has put keeping up with the Joneses on blast. And it's like, if you don't have this, you don't have that. That's why I think this song Never Fit In so powerful. It's counteracting this whole culture. It's like, look, I'm going to be who I'm going to be if I got off-whites on, or if I got, some sandals on. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, I know who I am. And when we know who we are, we don't need to have stuff that makes us that makes us who we are, because stuff comes and goes. Money comes and goes. I probably made 5 million during my drug career. When I walked away, I probably had like, I don't know, $400,000, maybe $500,000.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was, and that was from the sale of my property. All my cash was gone. So it's the same thing with this music industry, especially in the genre I'm in. I mean, you see, you know, people walking around with, you know, $500,000 sitting on their neck, but they don't even own a home.
No.
Right? That's really bad financial management. So, and the only way we learn is to lose everything. That's the only way that we learn. We learn hard lessons, and that's what ends up making us better. And you know, a lot of these young bucks that are doing well with music are going to learn that they should have been better with their financial management. Because there's one thing that we can count on in this life, is that everything is constantly changing and nothing stays the same.
Oh, it's called the Phoenix theory.
Dude, sound doesn't stay the same. What's popular doesn't stay the same. And that's why I'm like, man, if I can think about this, if I spent the last 15 years of my life putting all this together so we could end up helping one person that went through what I went through, that's the question that I asked myself when I started it. Is it worth it? The answer was yes, or I wouldn't be here. I already own a mortgage branch. So I do well because of that. That's what feeds Lion Rock Records. So it's not like I didn't make music so I could make a bunch of money. I've already made a bunch of money. And it really was the sincerity of hoping that people's lives would be changed by what we're doing. Or at least maybe not fully changed, but maybe push them or maybe nudge them a little bit to think about how their life can actually change if they change. That's really what I hope happens.
And it does, because like you said, like, you know, the track, it basically points out there, like it doesn't matter who you are, or what you are, or how you dress. There's so many kids out there that feel like they don't fit in this type of, I call it the cool guy club. Don't fit in the cool guy club, or don't fit in this, and they feel the outcast. And then when they listen to your song, they're going to relate, because they're like, in a way, they're going to relate because they're like, I don't fit in, but I can still be myself and who I am, and basically saying, fuck you, I don't give a shit who are you, what you think I am. I'm going to be me.
That's where when you become original, that's how you end up being who you are. When you stay true to self, I mean, the whole record. So we got Never Fit In that just dropped. Then we got Humpty Dumpty that drops January 7th. And we're gonna drop four singles, 4 videos, and then drop the album next May or June. Right? That's kind of the timeline we're looking on right now. Every single one of these has a progression. You know, this next one, Humpty Dumpty, like there's a reason why I call it that, because I couldn't put all the broken pieces back together. There's no way that I could fix me, but I could take one step at a time and take one day at a time. Right. And learn that this isn't going to all fix itself in a day. So I've had to be very long suffering with my process and gentle on myself. That's another thing. You know, any of us that are super competitive, we want to win. You know, I have a tendency to be really hard on myself. And I know a lot of people are like that too. It's like, there's no such thing as perfect. That doesn't exist.
And the ones who are hard on themselves are the ones that are successful in life.
Yeah,
you know?
I don't know why. You know, I probably watched The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, probably the whole series, probably 5, 6, 7 times. And I mean, that guy was just so competitive and so hard on himself. And I mean, even he had flaws in his game. There was flaws that took place throughout his process, because we are fallible humans. We are not perfect. We're not robots, and we're going to make mistakes. And we need to do what's called self-care. Right. So, you know, I hope this music drives people to self-care. Like, hey, what am I doing to make sure I'm taken care of mentally and emotionally? Because our decisions are made out of where we're at mentally, where we're at emotionally. That's how a lot of these things take place that people don't understand. And if our emotions aren't in check and our mind is not in check, and we're making those decisions based upon a poor state of mind and a poor state of emotional well-being, man, we're going to make some dysfunctional mistakes. And then we're going to have to clean up
that. Yes, we are. But going crazy, saying we're going to clean up the mess.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. People can go their whole lives not cleaning up their mess. I had to make amends to my daughter. I had to make amends to my mother. I didn't have to do anything. I chose to come to my mother and tell her how sorry I was for all the stuff that I did. I went to my daughter and said, you know what? I changed my life when she had just turned 5. And I told her, I said, you know what? I'll never go back. That's it. You'll never be in a position where you don't feel safe again. And so we just talked last week because she's going to grad school in Washington. And she was like, Dad, I'm so proud of you because you're the only person in my life that's ever taken responsibility and truly changed.
That's rad.
That's big coming from your kid.
That's rad, dude.
So we get the opportunity to do something different. I didn't get dealt a very good hand. I really didn't. And you know, the weird thing about it, it's my birthday, 7/7/77. I wasn't born this lucky kid. So,
but if you really think about it, you got a second chance to be that lucky, and you are lucky because you have 2 beautiful kids, you have a great career, and you're doing amazing. So you do have that 7/7 might not came now.
Yeah,
but it came to your second door. You know.
Yeah. It's I did get another door. I got another chance, and I took advantage of it in regards to going, you know what, that when I said that was it, I mean, there's probably not a day that goes by, maybe a day or two where I don't think about my friend getting shot in the head next to me. Mm-hmm. That was my fault, essentially. He made his choice to work with me, but that was my hookup. Mm-hmm. And I had no clue that this guy was going to come in and shoot my friend in the head and try to murder me. Right. And the fact that he gets killed in Las Vegas a week later, I mean, the whole story it's like movie type stuff, you know, of what happens to somebody, but then getting out on the other side and taking advantage of the fact that I had been given a second chance. Man, that was huge for me. So I was just like, oh, I'm gonna run with it. I'm gonna run like a thoroughbred horse, put my blinders on and stay focused, continue to make good decisions. And you know, it's crazy if you think about it. How does a kingpin drug dealer, you know, moving millions of dollars worth of weed every month, how does he end up working with investment bankers that, you know, their company's doing 5 to 40 billion a year? How does that happen?
I'm speechless. you tell me how that happened.
I always tell, because I mean, one of the guys that owns one of the funding banks, I went down to his house down in Walnut Creek, big old fat spread. I mean, just ridiculous. And I sat with him and I told him my whole story, and we're friends now. But I told him, I was like, man, I was like a human money counter. I could count out $100,000 in under 10 minutes. That's how fast I could count money. And he was like, he said, Jevon, it's so crazy that you're one of our top producers and you're one of the heads of one of the bigger funding banks in California. And yet this was your old life. And I was just talking to him. I just sent him a video a couple of days ago, never fit in. And he sent it back to me. He was like, man, this is just crazy. He's like, your life just keeps getting crazier and crazier. So it's pretty cool to continue to watch all the goodness that keeps coming up, and super fun to you know, keep working with Head, and Jamie Roberts is just hands down just a phenomenal publicist, and my manager is just absolutely amazing. So the whole process has just been wonderful. So,
and you well deserve it. You know what I mean? Because I mean, what you've been through and had done and living on the streets and to become a man who you are and raise 2 kids. I mean, you well deserve it, bro. I mean, you definitely do.
Thank you, man. It's good to hear. And it's, you know, it's fun to share the story. I I go speak to at-risk youth, and I have been for the last 15 years.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Kids will be shipped in on buses that are either on their way to CYA, or they're on probation. And so, yeah, I go around all over the place, man, speaking to kids. And
Dude,
I really meant it when I said music to help people, and, I back it up with my actions. So, I got this thing that we're going to do where every time we play Never Fit In live, I'm pulling, I collect, it's crazy because growing up, I didn't have no Nikes, and now I've got 140 pairs of 90 Air Max dead stock in my closet that I haven't worn. And so, I just told Caleb, I was like, look, man, wouldn't it be so cool is every time we perform this live, like we hand out, a brand new pair of dead stock, Air Maxes or J's or whatever, and to maybe a kid that's never even had a pair, or maybe a kid that's shoes are so beat up, he can't even, the bottoms are so beat up that he could feel his socks through them. So there's things that we want to do to just be able to bless others. So,
dude, that's rad, dude. That's you got good Oma, dude. Like that's definitely something I don't hear people do. You know what I mean? There might be people do it and they just do it just to do it as a way to promote themselves. But what you're doing it the right way. Because you've been there and you know what it's like. And so you're using your music to help promote and put the word out there what's going on in the real world that nobody knows about. Or they do, but they just turn their head sideways and walk away.
Yeah, and you see people giving out Nikes, and it's so they can gain something for themselves, and it's like, no, I just want maybe that kid to not feel the way that I felt. That's where my head goes. I'm like, man, if a new pair of shoes on their feet is going to make them feel completely different about themselves, and man, shoot, I know that shoes aren't supposed to do that, but just giving to other people and watching it help change their perspective. And then think about this. You give something to a kid that's never had it before, and you tell them that they have value and they have worth, that'll change their life. There's action matched with the word. It's one thing to say, hey, you have value. It's another thing to back it up with something. You know what I mean? So that's one thing that I think Noble Poets is going to be known for, is just the fact that we just love humanity. That's what it's about. So
that's rad, dude. And what do you got? I mean, I know you already said you got something about your new album and tracks and stuff like that coming out. But I mean, do you have any tours coming up, or you got any shows coming up, or anything like that for 21, 24?
Yeah, in 2022 when the album drops, we're planning on going on tour. But we're taking one step at a time. We're doing well with this first single, and I think the next one's even going to do better. I write all the screenplays for our videos, so everything was that first video that was all written out by me. I got to have my story stay authentic to what happened. So Humpty Dumpty is pretty intense as well. So that we're building a crescendo up until the point of me changing my life. So yes, we'll be on tour next year, but we'll drop the album. This is based upon Jamie and management and whatnot, but I'm kind of letting them run a lot of their things. So going on tour is absolutely going to happen, but I'd like to be able to do some shows before we go on tour to kind of get people pumped up for the album drop.
That's right, dude. And do you have any places in mind that you want to go do like a couple songs at or anything?
We were invited down to Fresno a couple weeks ago to do a show for at-risk youth, and we're working on the details of that. But that'll be a completely all free thing, and just like I said, giving back to the kids and loving on them with our sound, loving on them. If we do the show, there'll probably be some speaking engagements for me down there as well, where I can come and just tell my story, share my story, answer questions, do stuff like that. So it's not going to be just shows, man. It's going to be more of like a whole empowerment movement is really what we're trying to create.
Dude, that's rad, dude. A lot of respect for that, man. A lot of respect. And where can the viewers find you at? Do you have a website? Do you have a social media, YouTube channel, anything like that?
Yeah, we got all that. Noblepoets.com is the website. Noble Poets Music on Facebook, Noble Poets on Instagram, or it might be The Noble Poets on Instagram. So you can find us on all those outlets. And then we're also on Apple, Spotify. You can pull up Noble Poets, Never Fit In single and put it on your playlist. A lot of people have been doing that. And it's been cool, man, because people in like Poland are sending messages to my feed just saying, man, this track is crazy. It's so good. So that's been really cool because music's universal and it goes out to the whole planet. Right. So yeah. If listeners have time, checking out our page on Facebook, all the support that we can get as far as people that want to listen and engage in what we're doing. I go through and I answer all the, questions that people have on Facebook. And man, I've had people from metalheads to, pop. I mean, all of it. They've listened to the track, and I think it's because the story's so relatable. The feedback has been amazing. So.
No, it definitely is. It's definitely a really good track, and the beats are amazing, dude. You guys killed it on the beats.
Hey, thank you, man. I appreciate that. We put so much work into carving those subs and doing that EQ. Joe did a great job mixing it. We do a lot. We have the sound pretty much the way that we want it before we send it over to mixing. But yeah, Caleb and I work. We probably. We got 1,000 hours probably put into this record, man, of our time producing. We're both very, very, very picky with what sound we want and what we're going to use and why we're going to use it and what we're trying to accomplish with each song. So
that's rad, dude. And one last question: what do you have any good advice to any upcoming musicians or anything at all?
I do. It's not just musicians. If you're a skater, snowboarder, artist, photographer, a basketball player, stay focused. Visualize your dream and do not stop. And don't let anybody else tell you what you can and cannot do. Man does not get to put limitation. People don't get to tell Jevon what they can do and what they can't do when it comes to creativity. They're not going to tell me what I can and can't do in regards to my label. Now, we abide by the laws of the land. I'm not talking about committing crimes. I'm talking about when we have something that's inside of our chest that this is what we want to do, there's not a single person on the planet that's going to tell me that I can't do that. Limitation, man doesn't get to do that. And so anybody else, any aspiring musicians, anybody, if they're, like my daughter's a painter and she's sending me a painting for Christmas. She's like, nobody knows about my paintings. I was like, honey, I know about your paintings. I said, why do you do paintings? Well, because I love to paint. Okay. So there's where we start, right? So why do people do what they're doing? Because they love it. That's the thing. That's why it's in there. So we keep moving forward and we do it for the love of it. Once everything else gets in the way, we start to lose that love of what we're actually trying to accomplish and why we're doing what we're doing. If we stay focused and we keep our blinders on, Jimmy Iovine always says this from Interscope. He goes, I got blinders on. I'm focused on the vision and I won't stop until I achieve. That's probably the biggest thing I've ever heard Jimmy Iovine say. It'll stick with me for the rest of my life. And I've had that same mentality. That's probably why I line up with that so well. It's like, I just don't quit. I move forward. I move forward. I move forward at all costs. So that's my advice to anybody who's aspiring to do anything, right?
Mm-hmm. That's 100%. That was touching to me, man. And what you said is totally true. You know what I mean? You got to focus and don't let anybody tell you what you can or can't do. And it's 100%,
Well, think about this. You ain't going to get there if you quit.
Exactly.
You're not going to get there if you listen to negative feedback.
True.
People are always going to have opinions. My opinions, if I live by people's compliments, I'm going to die by their criticisms.
Yep.
Think about that. So we live by affirmation. We're going to die by criticism. No, I stay true to the vision. I stay true to the goal. You're never going to be able to please everybody. It's impossible to please everybody. Not everybody's going to like the music. Not everybody's going to feel the message. That's okay. I didn't make it to please everybody. I made this because this is what makes me come alive. This is what makes Caleb come alive. And it's going to help other people come alive too. So you know, and the same thing with everything you're doing. I mean, look, you're interviewing people on your podcast, and everybody's going to have a different personality. You didn't just build this out of nothing. I mean, you built this with a vision and a dream. That's what it is.
100% right.
You're doing it. You're on the phone with me, and then you got a show, and I mean, yeah, I'm ready to come and drop bars, bro. You get us down to SoCal. We'll come and knock this out.
All right, I'll hit you up on season 5 when I start working on that, man. But Jevon, I'm going to say to the viewers, check out Noble Poets, check out their latest track. Nobody Fits In. You will be stoked, dude. And you know, and leave a comment. Let them know what you think and whatever, you know. Yep. But Jevon, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show and telling everybody about your vision, about your life, and the whole story and everything. And I have nothing but mad respect for you, dude. And I'm so happy that you got blessed and you got a second chance in life, and you fucking well deserve it, bro.
Hey, man. Thank you, Tommie. I appreciate you so much, man. Let's stay connected, bro.
Definitely. You take care, man.
All right, man. Thanks.
All right.
Okay.